Hello and welcome to Secrets of Organ Playing podcast.
This is a show dedicated to helping you become a better organist.
We're your hosts, Vidas Pinkevičius.
And Aušra Motuzaitė Pinkevičienė.
We have over 25 years of experience of playing the organ.
And we've been teaching thousands of organists online from 89 countries since 2011.
So now let's jump in and get started with the podcast for today.
We hope you'll enjoy it.
Hello guys, this is Vidas.
And Aušra.
Let's start episode 642 of Secrets of Organ Playing podcast. This question was sent by Rosemary and she writes, Happy New Year, greetings to you all. This day dawned breathtakingly beautiful and we will all be glad of the shade in the garden as the heat rises. A new year ahead in which our prayers and hopes are with those frontline workers caring for victims of COVID-19 and discoveries for containment. May you all and your families stay safe. Your comments, goals and plans are incredibly inspirational for me with renewed energy. I have heaped my attention on BWV 529 and various choral preludes, BWV 604 a favorite, studying your improvisation and trying out some variations. Thanks to you all and the very best of good wishes for a happy and productive year ahead, sharing your wonderful talents. Rosemary. Obviously, this question was written just at the start of the new year, probably, right, Aušra?
Yes, and it's more not like a question, but as a New Year's wish, which is very nice and kind. Thank you, Rosemary.
Maybe we could discuss a little bit what she is studying right now. Bach's works 529 and 604. BWV 529 is one of the trio sonatas. I believe this is C major sonata.
Yes, this one was the first trio sonata that I have learned by J.S. Bach.
And 604 is choral from the Orgelbüchlein, Gelobet seist du Jesu Christ. Okay, so let's start with the easier one, maybe, with the choral prelude Gelobet seist du Jesu Christ, BWV 604. We have, of course, the score with fingering and pedaling available. Do you think it's helpful?
I think it's very helpful.
It's written for two manuals and pedals. Obviously, the right hand has the solo melody in soprano, ornamented, and the lower three voices move in dialogues and duets with each other, creating very nice harmonic and melodic and polyphonic and rhythmic also fabric.
Yes, and although the Orgelbüchlein collection is not a really hard one, but I think in this chorale you have some things to do and to learn, because when I'm looking at the pedal part, it's really quite a vivid part. Don't you think so?
It reminds me of some choral preludes by Buxtehude, right?
Yes, it resembles that.
Except with Buxtehude, we usually have what it's called for imitation technique. So before the cantus firmus in the soprano enters the choral tune, we have three lower voices also presenting the same phrase in fugal imitation, but on a different registration and accompaniment. But with Bach here, he starts right away with the choral phrase in the soprano.
Yes, it's like Schmücke dich, for example, famous, or Mensch bewein.
No, not exactly, right? Because in O Mensch bewein, yes, melody starts right away, but Schmücke dich we have I think introduction first and then choral tune.
But anyway, it's ornamented choral tune in the soprano voice. That's what I meant by
Yes.
comparing these two.
Good point. Obviously, if you add the introduction or those interludes, polyphonic interludes, then chorale becomes quite long.
Well, that's true because, the Schmückedich is from the different collection, which is more sophisticated, and all those chorales are much longer.
Right, probably their purpose is different too. And with each of the chorale preludes from the Orgelbüchlein collection, they could easily be played as a hymn introduction, at least in those days.
Yes, sure. I'm not sure how well congregation would respond nowadays to such an introduction. I think it depends on probably congregation and a priest.
They would probably today sound more like a prelude before the service, right? Or a communion piece instead of the hymn singing.
You might get in trouble as Bach did, in Arnstadt when he started to, upon returning from the Lübeck, hearing Buxtehude's playing, he started to make all these elaborate interludes between, hymn stanzas. And people were not very happy about it.
Even before, between hymn phrases, right? Imagine there are 4 phrases in a short hymn, so he would add interludes before the second, third, and the fourth phrase. That would be very confusing, even though it would sound beautifully if done properly, but it would be confusing for people when to start the next phrase, right? Because they would sing with these big chords in accompaniment, and then suddenly have to stop and wait for young Bach to play his flourish and then sing again.
I wish I would have a time machine and I could travel to that time and to listen at least once about what he did.
We could obviously imagine some of his chorale preludes have these flourishes. The one I'm thinking is probably In Dulce Jubilo, 700. What is this? Maybe In Dulce Jubilo is 729. I will have to double check. Jubilo BWV 700. Yeah, 729 or even 751. There is one too, like that. But 729 is with big flourishes, I think. Great. So getting back to Gelobet Zeis du Jesu Christ, I think it's important for people to start learning it right away, step by step, maybe phrase by phrase, and also voice by voice. What do you think about that, Osha?
Yes, if you have time, I definitely would do that.
And if you don't have time?
Then don't play Bach.
Yeah, because you have to make time to play Bach properly. And obviously, in the original edition, handwriting, left hand part plays from the alto clef. This is fun to read.
Yes, and some of the editions still preserve it. Some of the oldest one.
Yeah, 19th century Bach Gesellschaft edition. I think we have the fingering and pedaling written on that edition, so people who like alto clefs can take advantage of that too. I don't know which edition Rosemary is practicing from, but nevertheless, it's really fun. And then once you do solo parts, you can practice 2 parts together: soprano, alto, soprano, tenor, soprano, bass, right? What else? Alto, tenor, alto, bass, tenor, bass. And then 3-part texture: soprano, alto, tenor, soprano, alto, bass, soprano, tenor, bass, and alto, soprano, bass, before playing all 4 parts together.
I feel dizzy already only by listening to you.
So how would you recommend learning it?
Well, the same way you do.
So
But I couldn't name all these variations right away. I get confused.
I know. All right, and then obviously she would want to play very difficult piece, BWV 529, C major.
Trio sonata.
Exactly. I wonder why she chose those pieces from a different, actually, technical levels.
Well, we don't know if she is working on entire trio sonata or only on one movement, and which one more out of those three. Because we are different in the difficulty level. For example, I don't think the first movement is really very hard. It's quite comfortable when you manage the text, but it's quite long. When the second movement is easier because, of course, it's a slow movement. But still, there are a lot of things to do and not as easy to play it beautifully. But I guess the trickiest one is the third movement, although it's really short comparing to the first one. But it has some tricky spots.
Correct, but the technique to learn it would be the same as with orgelbuchlein chorals, except here are 3 voices and only 7 voice combinations. Right hand, left hand, pedals, right hand and left hand together, right hand and pedals, left hand and pedals, and all voices together. You could argue that it's best to practice in shorter segments or entire piece, right? Voice by voice. I don't know. What do you think? Shorter segments or longer?
I would always learn in longer segments, but that's my way of learning, and I always would skip these 3 beginning things, as you said, just to play a single line. I never play a single line.
Because you already can play them well, right?
But even when I started to learn my first trio sonata, I would work on right hand and pedals and then left hand and pedals, especially left hand and pedals. That gave me much trouble.
Would you learn pedals alone?
Well, actually, I didn't, but it's worth doing probably.
So yeah, for each their own, probably. By the time you were starting playing the organ, remember you were playing the piano for 12 years, right?
Yes.
So obviously on a professional level. So each line didn't make much trouble for you. Didn't present any difficulty or too much. Therefore, you could concentrate on 2 lines right away.
But I guess if you are learning trio sonata, you should be at least in the intermediate level. Because it's not a piece for beginners.
Obviously, not even a basic level piece. It's more of a intermediate level piece or even advanced level piece if you play the fast movements. And first of all, start with the largo, with the slow movement, middle movement.
Yes. I remember, those repeated notes in the middle movement were not as easy for me to play well.
Yeah, this middle movement consists of 2 episodes alternating with each other, and the first one is okay, but then the second one is very difficult. The second half features the same thing in a different keys.
And in general, sometimes I think that it's easier to play the fast movements comparing to the slow ones. Because the fast movements, if you have good technique, everything is pretty straightforward and simple. But with the slow tempo, you have to take more time and you have to know what to do with that kind of music because, well, it's difficult to pick up a right tempo, because if you will play too slow, it will be boring. If you will take a tempo which is too fast, it might sound unmusical. So you really have a lot to think about while playing slow movements.
My final advice would be keep counting. Keep subdividing the beats, but keep counting out loud. This will help you feel the pulse, correct pulse, and stay in the pulse throughout the piece. And without pulse, there is no liveliness in music.
Yes, good advice.
Okay, guys, we hope this was useful to you. Please send us more of your questions. We love helping you grow. And remember, when you practice,
Miracles happen.
this podcast is supported by Total Organist, the most comprehensive organ training program online.
It has hundreds of courses, coaching, and practice materials for every area of organ playing. Thousands of instructional videos and PDFs. You will not find more value anywhere else online.
Total Organist helps you to master any piece, perfect your technique, develop your sight reading skills, and improvise or compose your own music, and much, much more.
Sign up and begin your training today at organduo.lt and click on Total Organist. And of course, you will get the first month free too. You can cancel anytime.
If you like our organ music, you can also support us on Patreon and get free CDs.
Find out more at patreon.com/secrets of organ playing.